Alright, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today I'm going to be doing my meta predictions for the upcoming Milwaukee Regionals, which by the time this video goes up should be tomorrow, but I'm definitely excited for it. I'm going to be in attendance, hope to see some of y'all in Milwaukee. Pretty excited for the tournament. The meta has been developing in a pretty interesting way. We've seen Gardevoir win 3 straight Regionals in a row, and all kinds of different new decks are popping up and performing well. It's definitely a interesting, healthy, diverse meta. But it is dominated mostly by Dragapult. But yeah, if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We're on the road to 23K subs. And if you go into the video, leave a like. What are your predictions for the Milwaukee Regional Championships? And I hope to see some of y'all there this weekend. If you see me, don't be afraid to come up and say hi and all that stuff. I like interacting and meeting new people. So yeah, anyways, here we go. Meta predictions. Dragapult is the best deck in the format. I'm predicting that it's going to be the most played deck in the tournament by far. I don't think there's any debate there. Dragapult will probably be the most played deck. I think the Dragapult Dusknoir build is starting to fall off a little bit, though, in popularity. From what we've been seeing, the biggest way Dragapult is being played right now is actually with no Dusknoir. The Genesect Hawlucha Monkey Dory build is the most common way Pult has been seen played and doing well in these recent tournaments post-Atlanta. That trend will probably continue going into Milwaukee, where we are going to see this deck be the most played Dragapult variant. So Dragapult combined, probably still going to be upwards of like 20+% of the room. Like, good chance it's going to be like 22 to 25% of the room. It's still the best deck in the format. I know it like literally hasn't won a regional yet in this format, but it's still the best deck. Like, you can't debate that. All the good players will probably be playing it. We might even see more innovations in Dragapult going into this weekend, especially as we kind of have a solidified like 3 best decks in the format. And then, of course, we got Guardy, which, you know, it's also going to be very popular. It has been winning all these tournaments. I think that popularity and hype is going to carry over to a pretty good tournament run in Milwaukee. Can Gardevoir win 3 straight tournaments in a row? Maybe it's possible. Gardevoir is BDIF. Besides Dragapult. Like, overall, Dragapult's the more popular and common deck, so, like, Gardevoir will probably, I mean, I'll talk about that when we get to, like, the meta breakdown I have on Trainer Hill. When we get to this part of the video, I'll talk more about, like, where my predictions on Guardy are, but Gardevoir is still, like, going to be fairly played. I don't expect to see more Guardy than Dragapult in the tournament, but it'll be popular. It's won all these tournaments. It arguably has the best Dragapult matchup out of any deck right now, or one of the best Dragapult matchups, right? And I think its success will continue. There's 2 different variations. There's the Brent Tonneson build that won Monterey, and then there's also Henry Chow's build that won Atlanta. These are the 2 most, common builds of the deck. I would expect to see more of the Brent Tonneson build. We haven't seen the Henry Chow build really do much after Atlanta, so I would expect the Brent Tonneson build to be the more common way you see Gardevoir being played. Next up is Gholdengo, which is probably the 3rd best deck in the format right now. I think a lot of people will agree that Gholdengo is the 3rd best deck in the meta. I think, like, we have a solidified top 3 best decks. Guardy, Dragapult stand above the rest, and then we have Gholdengo below it at number 3. So there's a couple different ways Gholdengo is being played. The most common one right now is the Dragapult build that Grant Chen played to the Monterey Regionals. This is probably going to be the most common way we're going to see Gholdengo being played, right? The Dragapult does give you a lot of support with the extra draw from Dracloak, and then if you happen to play against a Cornerstone Ogerpon, you do have access to Dragapult as a backup attacker. For the most part, you are just a Gholdengo deck at the end of the day. You have the Genesect in there, which can be good in the mirror, and also really good against Dragapult itself to stop Unfair Stamp. Yeah, the most common way to play this deck will probably be this build. I will say this, I feel like Gholdengo is going to be respected a little bit this weekend. Like, a lot of decks right now are trying to fit Genesect in the deck, so I would expect Gholdengo to be a little bit more heavily countered. It's kind of getting caught in the crossfire of, like, Unfair Stamp being really broken. All these decks trying to squeeze a Genesect in their deck so they can't lose to, like, random KO Bud who gets stamped to 2 and lose, or even just Gholdengo, right? Being able to shut off eSearch Pro is ridiculous. So I think we're going to see a little bit more Genesect this weekend. That's not good for Gholdengo. Gholdengo is a very good deck, and I think that it doesn't really lose to any deck specifically right now, other than, like, maybe Flareon. Literally, that's, like, your worst matchup, but other than that, I think Gholdengo's fine. It's just, I think it's starting to get a little bit countered. I think more counters are starting to pop up, which is making this deck a little bit worse overall. The other popular Dengo deck is the Bodhi build with no, like, draw, just Gholdengo itself. Just 4 Gholdengo, just straight consistency, 4 Cypher, 4 Arven, 2 Pokegear. This one is also pretty common. I wouldn't be surprised if this one also did good. I think the most common one will probably just be the Dango Dragapult variant, but this build also will be fairly common too. They both might be kind of similar in like play rate. Dunsparce also will be good. You know, I could see Dango Dunsparce being popular. I think Dunsparce is slightly worse than Dragapult right now overall, but I wouldn't be surprised if we also saw the Dunsparce build. All right, next up is the Joltik Toolbox deck, another deck that has been gaining a lot of steam over the past couple of weeks, and it has been doing good at the past couple of regionals, so it definitely looks like this deck is on the come up. I wouldn't be surprised if Joltik Box saw a decent play rate at Milwaukee. I'll talk about where I think this deck will stand in the format in terms of day one meta share in a bit, but yeah, this deck will be common. Could see it get top 8 again. You know, it could definitely get top 8. Like, honestly, literally any of the 5 decks I'm going to talk about here are probably ones that will easily make top 8. Like, any of these 5 decks will either make top 8 or they can win the entire tournament itself. And the other one is Archaludon, which has definitely been on the cusp of making top 8, but I think Archaludon's not a bad spot this weekend. Honestly, the only thing I have to worry about is Gholdengo itself. But yeah, Poison Archaludon I think is like the strongest way to play the deck right now. It's the one that's been performing the best in all these tournaments, so it's probably the best one overall. The Poison package gives you some pretty good options to donk your opponent or to be able to get those high roll extra damage KOs with the Archaludon's Binding Mochi jungle combo, which actually does help against Gholdengo, surprisingly. This has a great Gholdengo matchup. So I think that Archaludon Poison, pretty good deck. I don't know how popular Archaludon is going to be, because I think a lot of people are kind of turned off from the deck, just the fact that it doesn't really... It's a bit shaky into both Guardian Drag and Gholdengo, right, which is kind of the problem. And then we have Archaludon Zoroark, the other Archaludon deck that has been seeing a decent amount of success. I don't know how common this deck will be, and the deck's pretty solid, though. Zoroark's definitely a really good draw engine right now. This deck kind of has to build a way to kind of counter what's popular. So, like, you're playing End's Castle, you're playing Vengeful Punch, you're playing multiple copies of Black Belt, you're playing the Hop Zacian. You just need to have different ways to counter different decks, right? You know, Black Belt you're going to need if you want to knock out Gholdengos. You know, the Hop Zacian, which can attack Gholdengo, but can also be used as a way to knock out Cornerstone Ogre Pawns. You have to build your deck a bit differently, but it's an interesting approach to Archaludon. I think the Poison one's going to be more common, but this build's also not too bad either. Next up is Terrabox, another deck that, like I said, has fallen off a little bit from at the start of the format, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe a Terrabox in top 8 at Milwaukee. I think the deck is starting to get a little bit underrepresented right now, but is it worse than just playing the Joltik deck? Like, Terrabox is a really strong deck. It's got some good options, but is the Joltik deck just a better way to play this deck? Because, like, okay, it's not the same deck, obviously, but they both use Pikachu. Is the Joltik deck just better than Terrabox? Is it the better Pikachu deck is the main question you want to be asking. So I think Terrabox definitely in an interesting spot right now. Still not a bad deck, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple Terraboxes make day 2. And maybe even, well, definitely in day 2, but I mean, like, make top 8. Maybe one can make top 8. Raging Bolt is like the other Terra deck that I think is fairly popular. People like the Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt's got a good Dragapult matchup, which I think is a really good selling point. I also don't think it's bad in a Gholdengo right now, because if you can make a one-prize board state, you can just easily win the prize trade, right? So I think Raging Bolt is very strong, has its issues, so it's not the most perfect deck on the planet, and I also think it's got a pretty rough matchup versus Gardevoir, which is not a great thing. If you want to play this deck, you are going to take a bit of a rougher Guardy matchup. It's not unwinnable, but it is hard to beat, in my opinion. So I think Raging Bolt is a perfectly fine deck. It might be better than Terrabox, in all honesty. We'll have to see on that one. Next up is the Flareon deck, the other Terra deck that's pretty solid right now. Flareon's got some cool tricks up its sleeve with the Sylveon, and being able to abuse Flareon plus Briar is actually pretty good in a lot of matchups. The Flareon specifically itself has a great time into Gholdengo, so you have a good Gholdengo matchup, and you have a pretty decent matchup into Dragapult with the help of Sylveon. So I think the deck's fine. I don't think this deck will be very popular, though. It has been getting some hype, and its results have been decent, but it's not going to be common or popular enough for me to want to respect it. Like, if my opponent flips over a Hoot, I'm not expecting them to bench an Eevee. I'm expecting them to bench a Raging Bolt or a Teal Mask Groupon or something, you know what I mean? So, not going to be super common, but don't be surprised if you maybe hit one in the tournament. Just be ready for it. I want to say that. You know, top 8 deck, maybe we'll have to see. And then Pulsar is next. So, Charizard I don't think is in a great spot right now, but I think that Charizard itself is a good card. Just, what's the best way to play it? Well, the best way to play it is probably with Dragapult EX, right? Dragapult EX is really good. Why not just play Charizard with it? So I think this deck is fine. I like the addition of Genesect in the deck right now to counter Gholdengo, which is a bad matchup if you don't play the Genesect. Charizard is a very strong card. That also helps against Guardy, so you can make the deck beat the mirror match, but then you can also use the Charizard as a way to make your Guardy matchup even better, which Dragapult, like I said, its probable worst matchup right now is probably just Gardevoir, so having the Charizard makes the Guardy matchup a little bit more favored in my opinion. So I think Pulsar's a decent deck. It's not going to be very popular though, but it will probably be added to the mix of Dragapult decks. Then we have Frostlass, another really cool deck right now that got top 8 at Seville. We'll have to see how this deck does going forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Frostlass maybe have like a top 32 run. The deck's cool. It's definitely not bad. The spread approach is really strong. Nobody really like respects Frostlass or anything like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if this deck did decent. Like, I don't think it's bad into like Gholdengo and Dragapult and Gardevoir and stuff. And Zoroark's another deck I think is on the rise right now. This deck has a good matchup into both Guardian and Dragapult. That's like the first thing I want to note about the deck. It's not bad into other decks. Like, your matchup against Terrabox isn't bad, or Raging Bull, because you have the Darmanitan. Darmanitan is a very good card, not just as a way to ruin setups, but also just having it as a backup attacker versus decks using Teal Mask Ogrepon can be very strong. I just don't know how good the deck is because we haven't really seen everyone play it yet. Like, enough good players need to play the deck. We don't know the optimal 60. I know it got top 4 recently, but I don't know if the deck is ready to be unleashed yet. I don't know. If some good players start playing this deck to Milwaukee, this could easily change. I think the deck is very powerful and strong. We just have to see a good list, a good 60, and enough good players need to play it. But this is a deck that, in theory, can beat the two big decks right now, Guardian, Dragapult. And I guess Gholdengo's not bad either. All right. Terapagos, another Terra deck. I don't think Terapagos is in a great spot right now. I think that its matchup into Gardevoir is not great. It's better into Dragapult with no Dusknoir, and that deck is on the decline, which is a good thing for this deck. But that Guardy matchup is a little shaky, and I don't like that. It doesn't have a good matchup in a Guardy. Its Gholdengo matchup isn't great either, in my opinion, especially if they're just going to be playing Dragapult now as like an answer to the Terapagos. The other build is the Volcanion build that we saw do well in Atlanta. I think this build is also decent. It's a bit more of an aggressive deck, but at the end of the day, you're just going to take a bad matchup in a Guardy. If you're going to play this deck, you probably just have to accept the fact you're just going to be rough into Gardevoir. Don't know if I want to take a bad matchup into Gardevoir, to be honest with you, but I don't know. Terapagos is definitely on the decline right now. I don't think we'll see much Terapagos do well in the tournament. I also don't think that many good players are going to be picking up the deck again. Blissey box is cool. I don't think the deck is great. I think it was really just a one-time thing at Monterey. I think it's a cool deck, and I wanted to do well. But again, I think it's one-time, gig is over. I think the deck just doesn't have a good matchup versus Gardevoir. And yeah, I mean, maybe it has a fine Gholdengo matchup. But other than that, I just don't know, man. Like, you can beat Dragapult, and if you want to beat the most popular deck in the room, play Blissey. There are some things you could change about the list, though. I don't know how you're going to make your Guardy matchup better, but you can definitely add stuff like Farigiraf into the deck if you want to fix your matchup into Terrabox and into Raging Bolt. Which, you know, you can improve those matchups with the help of maybe a Giraffe. So maybe adding Farigiraf could make this deck stronger. So we'll have to see on that. Blissey's cool, though, but I think it's, you know, gig is up. Like, it was kind of a surprise deck, I feel like. And I feel like after that, we're not going to see the deck do anything better than it did at Monterey, but you never know. And then we got some other Moon decks here. We got Moon to Dunsparce, another deck that I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about. I think this deck's actually not bad. I mean, I think you have a good matchup versus Guardy, which is a great thing. Having a good Guardy matchup is pretty good. Your Dragapult matchup might be okay, too. I haven't played it yet, but I would imagine that matchup's fine. You can one-price board state your opponent pretty easily. It draws a lot of cards with the Dunsparce. We'll have to see. I don't know. I like the deck. I think it's cool. I want to see it do better in the future. And then the Poison Moon deck is the other way to play Moon. It's sneakily another kind of underrated deck right now, in all honesty. I think it's a decent little deck, right? Donking the opponent with Pet Crunch is really good. The Poison package in general is good. You can do a lot with the deck. Knock out the little Pokemon with the Pet Crunch, and then knock out the big guys with Frenzied Gouging, which is, I think, what this deck can do best. And then, finally, I want to mention Control here. Control's cool, and I think we're starting to see Control maybe find its way back in the format. Maybe. It got day 2 at the Sevilla SP, and maybe, going forward, we'll see more people pick up and try Pidgeot Control. And then finally, I have two like rogue decks I want to see do well. I want to see Blaziken and Greninja do well. This deck's really cool. Blaziken piles are really fun to play. I mean, Blaziken Mamoswine also exists, but I think Greninja deck's kind of cool. This deck was able to get day 2 at Atlanta. I don't think it got day 2 at Monterey and Sevilla, but I want to see this deck do well. This is a cool deck. I want to see it do well. So I got this on my bingo card of like random rogues I want to see perform well. And same thing with Hydreigon, another random rogue deck I want to see do well. I love Hydreigon. It's my mascot on the channel. I love this deck. I like the addition of Dunsparce. This build from the Sevilla SP is honestly really strong. The Dunsparce engine has been decent in what I've been testing so far with the deck. I want Hydreigon to do well. Another deck I want to see make better than like a top 32 at one point. Like, it would just be so cool to see that happen. If you're going to play Hydreigon, play it now, man. Guardy's good. There's no Manaphy in the format. It's a good time to play it. Just have to figure out how we're beating stuff like Dragapult and Gardevoir more consistently. And those are my bingo card picks. But finally, we're going to talk about the meta predictions. So these are my predictions of where I think decks are going to fall going into this format. So let me just make it easier for you to see this. So first off, we have Dragapult. Dragapult will probably take up a minimum like 20... Let's say 25%. We'll go on the high side. I mean, this deck is very strong. There's a very good chance Dragapult is going to be this high. 25% is not an overestimate. It's very possible it will be in that like 20 to 25% range. Might be a little bit on the higher side, but I'm going to give it the 25% because everyone loves Dragapult. Gardevoir will probably be around 12% of the format. I don't think enough players are really like down to play Gardevoir. Like, I feel like people who have been practicing Gardevoir will continue to play it. I just don't think the deck is going to be as popular as like it should be. The deck is very good. It's been winning like all the tournaments, but I just don't see Gardevoir being as popular as something like Dragapult. So I would probably put it around 12%, maybe 13%. Might be a bit better. That like 12 to 13% range, I can see where Gardevoir will probably land. Gholdengo will also, in my opinion, be around 12%. Honestly, it might be even higher than 12%. This is a deck that I legit could see being like 14%, 15% of the meta. Let's give it 15%. It's very possible that Gholdengo will be this popular. This deck is not only fun to play, but it's very good. I know it's getting countered by Genesect. A lot of decks are playing Genesect right now, and that's a big deal for this deck. That's a problem, but this deck is good, and I think Gholdengo has a good chance of being a 15% meta share deck. It's going to be very popular. I predict Gholdengo to be the second most played deck in the entire tournament, even though it's not the best deck. It's in the top 3, and that's why I think it's going to be that high. 13, 15% in that range, very much going to happen. It'll definitely be the second most played deck behind Dragapult, in my opinion. Next up is Joltik Box. Predicting this deck to be around like 7% of the meta. I can't see it being any higher than like 7%. Yeah, 7% like seems accurate. I don't think enough players have really tried the deck. It's still a very new deck, which is the thing, right? Gholdengo, Dragapult, Guardy have existed for a while. A lot of people that have just been playing those decks have just kept playing them. Joltik Box is a little too new. I'm going to give it a 7% meta share. Raging Bolt, I'll also probably put around 8% of the meta. People love Raging Bolt, man. What can I say? 8% is probably where we're going to see the Bolt lie. Terrabox, probably around 5%. The deck is good still. I think it maybe is underrated, but I still probably would put around 5%. I think enough players have been saying that, yeah, Terrabox, it is not it anymore. It's not as good as it was at the start of the format, and people have realized that. So 5% is probably where I'd put Terrabox. It might have a deep run in the tournament. I just don't think it's going to be popular. Terapagos, I'll put around 3%. I think this deck's falling off completely. 3% honestly might be a little too generous. It legit might be 2%. This deck's falling off pretty hard. Archaludon variants, so I could see that being around 7% of the format. People might be scared to play it because like Bridge just doesn't seem great into Gholdengo and into Gardevoir, which does hold the deck back. But I could see it being around the same as like Joltik, like in that 7 to 8% meta share is probably where Archaludon is gonna lie. Some other stuff, and Zoroark, 2% Moon, 2% Flareon, I'd probably put around 4%. Wouldn't be surprised if Flareon was 4%. I think enough people might want to play the deck. It's a fun deck to play. That does, in my opinion, justify it being in that like 4% meta share. Some other stuff here, those are just like decks that like added to like the bunch. Because like in general, they're gonna make the day 2 meta share just be stuff like all the decks combined. So combined total, all the Dragapult variants, Boltzard, Dusknoir Zard, the Genesect build, like they're all gonna be in the total percentage of Dragapult, so 25%. Same thing with all the Gholdengo variants, the Gholdengo Dunsparces, the Gholdengo Bodhi builds, the Gholdengo Dragapults, the Gholdengo Scizors. They're all going to be jammed together. So 50% Gholdengo, 25% Dragapult, 13 to 12% Guardy is going to be my prediction. And then the rest will probably just be other. Good chance we'll see like a 10% for other. Joltik Box, Archaludon could be a little bit higher. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Raging Bull was in that like 8 to 9% of the meta share. People love Raging Bull, man. I'm just saying. I keep saying that, but yeah, people like their Raging Bull decks. But there you go. Those are my meta predictions for the Milwaukee Regional Championships. My deck prediction of what can win the tournament. I mean, honestly, it's going to be one of the top 3, probably like Dragapult, Guardy, Gholdengo. Dragapult, Guardy, Gholdengo. Yeah, one of those 3 decks is going to win Milwaukee. That's my prediction right here. Just one of those 3 decks most likely are going to win the tournament. We'll have to see which one can take down the entire tournament. But hope you enjoyed the video here on Second Channel. If you did, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. What are your predictions for Milwaukee this weekend? Like I said, I'm going to be there, so if you want to come up and say hi, meet me and all that stuff, definitely don't be afraid to say hello. Yeah, catch y'all later. Bye-bye.